Most people think helping other people means giving them solutions, but most of the time helping other people means helping them untangle their thoughts. Here's why this matters. People don't want advice, they want clarity. So if you jump in too early and try and solve someone's emotional problem with solutions and easily won advice, your advice and solutions are just going to go in one ear and out the other. But if you genuinely help someone untangle their thoughts in the right way, not only will you help them arrive at a solution that genuinely works for them, but they will see you as someone they trust to open up to and rely on in the future. On the one hand, reflections are the easiest way for you to do this. So here's what to do next. Whenever someone comes to you with mess in their mind, two opposing ideas, one thing that they want blocking another thing that they want, or just general confusion, listen to them until you find the opposing thoughts, feelings or desires, and then say to them, so on the one hand you think, feel or want X, but on the other hand you think, feel or want Y, and then let them respond. Your reflection doesn't have to be perfect, nor does it have to be, spot on, perfect. It just has to be close enough to encourage the other person to start thinking towards their own solutions. For example, so on the one hand you want to stay in this relationship, but on the other hand you're having some doubts. On the one hand you feel as if staying in your home country is the correct and sensible thing to do, but on the other hand you feel as if you want something new. And when you give a on the one hand reflection, this will achieve three things when it comes to the rapport you build between you and the other person, the bridge of connection. First of all, it will help the other person feel understood, because both of their contradicting motivations are addressed. As elephants in the room, they're laid out on the table. And because those elephants in the room are addressed, that naturally reduces tension, because tension always softens once it's addressed. And then finally, their brain will start trying to close the gap of that tension even more by arguing in favour of which motivation is more important for them. So long as you listen to them and you are just simply a soundboard for them throughout their process of arriving at their own solution and conclusion. Interesting thing to note, the effect, or how do I put this? What you're seeing in another person when you interact with them is simply a byproduct of the attention that you give them. Got a bit carried away there, but that is just something to note. But now you might be thinking, okay, but after I deliver this sentence, Lewis, then what? Do I just shut up? Well, you deliver the reflection, and then you don't jump in to try and solve the contradiction for the person. No, you just let them keep talking. And what you'll notice is they will unravel the tension themselves and they will highlight solutions for themselves as they keep talking. All you're doing is being a soundboard and a good listener. And note, one more thing. People will only explore their contradictions if they don't feel judged. So it is really important that you give this reflection with a intention of genuine curiosity and openness. Now this is the key takeaway I want you to have from this whole video. So if this makes sense, feel free to click off now. But if you want to go a few more minutes deeper, then what we're going to wrap this video up with now is the psychology as to why this is so effective. This tool comes from motivational interviewing, a collaborative communication style used to help people increase their motivation to achieve their own goals. In motivational interviewing, it's called a double-sided reflection. But here are the 4 deep psychological reasons as to why it's so effective. 4? Yeah, 4. And they're quick. The first reason why it's so effective is because it addresses cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you hold 2 ideas, motivations or beliefs in your head at the same time. And when us humans do that, we get tense. For example, I want to get into shape, but I keep skipping the gym. I want to start a business, but I keep watching YouTube. I have doubts about the relationship, but I really love them. So when someone hears the inconsistencies reflected back to them with a on the one hand reflection, what it helps them do is spot the gap between their values and their behaviour, which increases this person's motivation to reduce that gap by aligning their values and behaviour so they become more congruent. So the bottom line here is, if you directly address this person's inconsistencies with, wait, hold on, you're doing one thing but you're doing the other, in an accusatory way, the other person will become defensive and shut down to your influence and collaboration. However, when you neutrally address their inconsistencies, the other person will feel more motivated to resolve the tension themselves and arrive at their own conclusion, which is where lasting behaviour change actually happens, and you'll be the most effective for people when it comes to social collaboration. The second reason why it's so effective is because it softens rigid thinking. As humans, we mostly think in black or white. Things are either great or terrible. You can only be productive or lazy. You should either stay or leave a relationship. We rarely see the in-between of these extremes. So on the one hand, reflections help yourself or the other person realise something crucial about life, which is two things can be true at the same time. You can want to stay in and leave a relationship. You can want to remain rooted in your home country and want to leave at the same time. You can feel hopeful and catastrophic at the same time. What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah. When you snap someone out of their black or white thinking, their thinking loosens and they become less rigid. Because what you're doing is you're taking their black and white lenses off, throwing them aside, and you're helping the person see, even though I'm drawing it in purple, the grey areas, the purple problems, the purple solutions in life. Let's just call it purple. The purple areas where the fruit of life lies. Because once, and this is important, because once you or other people see the grey areas between two extremes, options increase, sadness and anxiety decrease, and also that person becomes more open to change. The second to last reason why this is so effective is because it activates self-exploration rather than external persuasion. Multiple studies show that people change their behaviour when they generate the arguments for that behaviour themselves. So on the one hand, reflections help you escape the tricky psychological territory of giving advice, which then increases the other person's resistance, meaning that they then shut down and avoid your influence, and it gets you into the expansive psychological territory of you reflect, which increases the other person's self-generated insights, which then leads them to sustainable behaviour change, which lasts. A quick insight from motivational interviewing: this increases someone's change talk, which is another way of saying when people's motivations are reflected back to them, they start their motivation, they start arguing for change themselves, essentially, without any external persuasion. I'm forgetting a lot. Emil, bear with me. The final reason why it's so effective is because it avoids premature problem solving. If you want to make people defensive and just shut off to your influence, then just say, I've already decided what you should do, here's the solution, as we've been saying throughout this whole video. Say that and then just watch the other person squirm and eventually fall out of interest with you. If you wanted to keep people engaged and actually guide them towards behaviour change and trust you, communicate, let's understand the situation first. Do that and you will build a bridge of rapport between you and this other person. So that is it. In summary, clarity beats advice every single time. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Stay disciplined, playful and dangerous. Adios, muchachos y muchachas.